All right, so I want to welcome everybody to Theater 2 for our Dev Days Continued, our next session. We have our friends here from Chautauqua Institute, or Institution, sorry, I think I said that right. Um, and they're going to lead us through a session on recalibrating, prioritizing fundraising during a multi-year enterprise data modernization plan. To me, this just sounds like surviving technology transformation and keeping your business going. So I hope I got the theme right from your title. That sounds like a fascinating topic. I'm going to get out of your way and let you guys present.
Thanks, Derek. Welcome, everyone. This is my team from the Chautauqua Institution. Our session is called Recalibrating, Prioritizing Fundraising During a Multi-Year Enterprise Data Modernization Plan. My name is Dariel Dixon. I'm the Assistant Director of Database and Gift Administration, and I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves, starting with Sam.
Thanks, Dariel. Thanks, everybody, for attending today. I'm Sam Nelson, Chautauqua's Manager of Strategic Initiatives.
Hey, everybody, and I just want to say surviving probably should have been our title. I really like that title instead because it really encompasses what we're doing here today. I'm Nicole Sidlow, Director of Advancement Services at Chautauqua.
Thanks, Nicole. Surviving, and this is going to be a lesson on how to survive. So for those of you that are maybe undergoing processes, you can see that we are not only surviving, but thriving during the process. And I'm Vanessa Weiner, Senior Director of Marketing and Analytics.
Right, so a brief introduction to Chautauqua Institution. We are an arts and cultural nonprofit founded in 1874. If you were here earlier, you heard Vanessa say we were the mothership, and there are a lot of daughter Chautauquas around the country. We have programming in 4 key areas: the arts, education, religion, and recreation. Each summer, we bring together more than 100,000 people who visit us on site on our 750-acre lakeside campus. We also have a digital presence, an on-demand live streaming way of sharing our content and with folks beyond the summer season, and also on the grounds outside of that 9-week season. A little more context, Chautauqua by the numbers. This is just our summer assembly season. Like I said, 100,000 plus visitors, 63 performing arts events in our main amphitheater, 100 plus lectures, enrichment classes, a variety of opera, theater, anything you can think of, golf. There's just a ton of things happening at Chautauqua. And like I mentioned, we also have our CHQ Assembly, which is where we live stream and have on-demand programs that you can watch on your computer, your mobile device, any of your main streaming platforms on your television. I'm gonna pass it over to Vanessa to explain our systems.
Great, thank you. From Nicole's brief overview, which really just skims the surface of the over 4,000 events we have during our 9-week summer assembly season, you can imagine it takes a lot of infrastructure and systems in order to help streamline those processes, make sure those events take place at the right place and the right time. And then, of course, attracting patrons to all of those events that we have, building that patron base, not only for growth and revenue from ticket sales and class registrations and youth programs, but building that pool for philanthropy as well. As we are 150 years old, you can imagine that we have kind of introduced new systems very quickly and reactively throughout those years, especially over the last, 20, 30 years. We had a need that, there was a need that had to be met, new system, need that had to be met, new system. And most of these systems didn't talk to each other. Some of them still don't talk to each other. We've made a lot of headway, which we'll continue to talk about. But really, the main point of this slide is understanding that because of all of these different systems and the different ways that people enter their Chautauqua transactional journey, their patron journey with us, that there's lots of different ways they can enter into the Chautauqua technology ecosystem. And then for us, there's roadblocks along the way because those systems aren't integrated necessarily. Some are now, some weren't, weren't in the past. And that main one would be obviously our ticketing system, which, really oversees all of our registration, all of our gate pass sales, which is your kind of passport to the Chautauqua experience, and the main hub for collecting patron data. So really important that we, have that platform really positioned to work for us as we move through this technology modernization and integration plans that we'll continue to talk about.
So Vanessa just covered the pure amount of systems that Chautauqua has. For those that have moved, as the needs have arisen, they're still living on a mainframe. And so for us to take a look and say, what does it mean to modernize technology as an organization? We had to say, this has to touch every part of the organization. It doesn't matter how big or how small that part is. And in order to do that, we knew we needed buy-in and approval from all levels of the organization. So in 2019, we rolled out a new strategic plan called 150 Forward. And we see in that technology called out as a cross-cutting imperative. And for us, that means for all the other goals we have inside the strategic plan, technology needs to be modernized in order to achieve all of those goals and also set us up for everything that comes after that strategic plan, right? That's why we call it 150 Forward. It's not only about now, it's about what comes after our 150th year. And so in order to do that, we have buy-in from the board, we have buy-in from the executive team, and we have buy-in from all of our staff in order to do this. And so having that buy-in will set us out to create a mission. And Nicole, if we can go to the next slide, I'll cover that. And so in doing that, we said, okay, this touches so many people. This mission has to be big, but it still has to be clear. What are we trying to accomplish? And so, again, modernizing and creating a technology ecosystem where systems can be integrated using modern technology standards like webhooks and APIs is at the core of that. And doing so in a way where even after we're done with Project 360, the ecosystem lives on and systems can move in and out as the organization changes. That was a critical piece of what we're trying to do. And of course, in building a 360 view, it's how do we create data that is shared and accessible to all the right people in the organization and make sure it's flowing through that ecosystem in the right way and implementing that in a way that it adapts to whatever changes in the organization, especially as we've seen how volatile things have been over the last couple of years. And then, of course, there's so much overlap in what we do, even though we're so many different small businesses wrapped up into one, that we want to make sure we look for technology that is common as possible and as different as necessary, which for us means if we have different parts of the organization that are doing similar work, they should be using a similar system or the same system as opposed to using different systems, which in many cases they were going back to 2020 before we started this work.
Thank you, Sam. Obviously, we're not going to have time to go into the entire, robust and really clear strategic plan that we have for our organization. As Sam mentioned, we are approaching our sesquicentennial, which is our 150th anniversary in 2024. So really exciting year for us. And how are we positioning ourselves as an organization for the next 150 years? And really looking at, growing that revenue through patron engagement, right? Meeting patrons where they are, making sure we're meeting that patron expectation, whether it's through our ticket office, whether it's through one of our officers in advancement, whether it's, an usher at our amphitheater, right? Meeting that patron where they are and making sure that we're responding to them, through an omni-channel and lots of different ways. And of course, campaign success and making sure our campaigns, we look at them holistically so that we're really understanding that full patron journey from, that first marketing campaign to, a donor to potentially a property owner. We do have property owners on our campus as well. So really important as we kind of move forward, that a strategic plan is really robust with really clear objectives. And a lot of those are around philanthropy, looking at cost management and capital campaign management. So we have a lot of clear goals that we have to meet. And Project 360 is really leveraging, the team and the resources to move us forward in order to, meet those goals as an organization so that we're stronger on the other side.
So we have that strategic plan laid out and we see all of the places that technology needs to touch. The question we asked ourselves was, what does a team look like in order to accomplish this? It's certainly not just an IT team, even though it's an IT project. And so we set out with what we call the leads team. And so everybody that's on here is part of that. And each one of the people inside these areas leads a team of people that makes up Team 360. And so we knew we needed the data team. You can't drive towards a 360 view if you don't have the data team front and center in all of the decision making. The ticketing system that we've mentioned a few times is front and center for us. It's the first point of interaction for most of our patrons, where they buy a ticket and they come on the grounds. And so we knew that had to be something that not only we tackled first, but the patron experience in that ticketing system had to be something that was a core piece of this. And of course, we needed IT, it's an IT project, and we needed finance because cash is king. And so looking at all of that and then saying, how do we do project and change management along that? We built the leads team that does this with executive oversight and having that. And so with that team in place, we took a look at how we would tackle work and began to work on it. So Nicole, if we can switch to the next slide, I'll cover that as well.
I actually want to stay on this side for just a little more, Sam, and talk about the longevity of those core team leaders. It's been really exciting. I've been at Chautauqua for just a little over a decade. I think Vanessa is in the same boat. Sam's also, I won't guess, I know it's a similar amount of time. And I just wanted to share that longevity, having that perspective of what has worked, what hasn't worked, what we've wanted to accomplish and achieve, has been really key in having the right amount of perspectives on this team. Having an equal amount of perspectives, right? Every team is, so you see that bottom line of we're all sort of equal. It really brings us together in a way that we're making decisions together. So no one area is making a decision without the other areas knowing and buying in and helping to influence an outcome. So that's been really important. I'll throw it over to Vanessa if she's got anything more to share on that longevity. And I do want to make sure we're talking about our newer team members as well.
Yeah, I think my comment would be around looking at. I'm sorry, we're getting a bit of an echo. I'm not sure if that's me or what's happening, but really about breaking down silos, not just from a people perspective or from a data perspective. Nicole referencing those yellow blocks at the bottom. We are solving this as an organization, not just one department who operates in their data silo and one department that operates in their data silo. We are working together to solve, the common problems that we all face, and that we're all in this together, as our strategic plan calls us to be, in order to meet these aggressive goals that are set forth. So, and especially bringing in that historical knowledge from this team, as well as new perspectives, really leads to a dynamic team that is transformative for an organization.
I'll also share that the data team is kind of, it's not really clear who makes up the data team, but that's where we're getting perspective from advancement, we're getting perspective from marketing, and from all the other areas that are using the data appropriately across the organization. So we have, it's a little mini cross-functional team within the data team. I'd love to throw it over to Dariel. He's one of our newer team members, just to hear his perspective from coming in and joining this sort of midstream.
Thanks, Nicole. When you come in and you see all of the ambitions that this team has involved, it's very exciting and very intimidating all at the same time. You have to kind of hit the ground running, but it's always good to know that everyone here in the team loves your fresh perspective, because as it was said earlier, we do have a whole lot of organizational knowledge here, but it definitely sounds a whole lot. And it's just a great time. But it is very, very important, the work that we're doing, and everyone kind of pitches in and understands that part.
We are getting a question in the chat that I think we can answer right now instead of waiting till the end about structuring the teams to align with the data or vice versa. I'm not quite sure that we aligned it with the data. So in the way that the teams were structured, and Sam and Vanessa, you can pipe in here as well. It really went to who was using data the most and how we were already combining information. So we talk about the data team being that patron, it's a patron experience, it's how we're using patron data, but we're really closely aligned with the finance team, right? Because in advancement holds a sub-ledger to some of the financial accounting systems. So it goes into that like cross-functional, having equal perspectives, and we're all intertwined with one another and making it be that equal structure. I don't know if anybody else in my colleagues had something to share.
Yeah, Nicole, I'd add to that. I think it was really important for us as we started to do everything you just said. But it's something that is, and we'll cover this a little bit in the presentation, there are pieces that go throughout the entire project for us, like data governance and enterprise reporting analytics. And that team is constantly changing as we get new technology. There's a lot of things our organization wants to be able to do with data that we haven't been able to do in the past, that this is enabling for us, as well as things that we know we'll be able to do as we move forward. And so that team is constantly adapting as we adapt and build this ecosystem that meets the needs of the organization in a way we've never had before.
And just one other quick, add on to that is that, we really wanted to make sure that we were thinking outside of the box and not just recreating, we've built things as we needed them. And often, again, as I mentioned earlier, it was very reactive, so that as we built new data architecture and we're building our ecosystem, that we're not just reflecting the past and rebuilding what we've done historically. And I think we've also approached that from a team perspective, while not fully restructuring our organization, but really thinking about roles and responsibilities across the organization as we approach data and information as an asset, just as we would approach leads, a gift, all of those things. So making sure that we're constantly thinking about that structure and not just recreating, bad habits in new systems.
And to that point, Vanessa, one of the things that we knew we had to do was look at what technology was for the entire organization, because we had those silos that we were moving out of, because we knew we were redesigning the way the organization works. And so you see here in gray that implementation of 150 forward. What followed that was that need to start working on ticketing, because we knew it was such a pivotal piece to what our staff was doing and the interactions our patrons had with us. But we also knew we needed to look at all that other technology for the organization and make sure we had a full picture of what all of that was. And so we did a system audit, and we went through and we met with all key stakeholders inside the organization, saw what technology they were using, saw what was working for them, saw what wasn't, and saw where there was no technology at all that should be supporting them. And we use those to create what we call communities of practice, which is that back to that idea that we are as common as possible and as different as necessary. So anywhere where there was overlap in work, we created those communities of practice and said people that are doing similar work should be designing that technology together. And then we laid out a plan for those that'll set us up to be able to move the next 3 years of the project in a way that makes sense. And I think we'll circle back to that in a little bit, but if we can turn it over to Vanessa and Nicole to cover what we've sort of been through as we've gone through the last 2 years.
Thank you, Sam. So our technology journey didn't start in 2020 when Team 360 and Project 360 was created. It's been going on for probably as long as we've been in business. But we have some really key points over the last couple of years leading up to 2020 that really impacted the work on where we're going in this roadmap. So I'll let Vanessa start with Modeler, and we'll kind of pivot back and forth here.
Yeah, as Nicole mentioned, we have both been here for a little over a decade, and I can say that both of us in the organization have been, pushing for advancement in technology and looking at data and using data as an asset along the way. And really how that began was, for the first time, people were actually looking at data, not just how many and how much, but who and why, trying to get at those larger questions around motivation and sentiment. And we introduced SPSS Modeler between 2016, 2017. And that's something I still use because, old habits, but, building statistical models to really help us understand our patrons, whether they're cluster models or churn and retention models, and taking the data that we have, because we have a lot of data. Not all of it's, it's a lot of unstructured data, which goes into a lot of the work that we're doing now, but really being able to show the organization the power of that work. When the first time that we deployed some of those early models, we saw a 3% increase in 1 week passes by using a purchase prediction model. We saw a decrease in new visitor churn by 8% using a churn retention model and understanding who's churning and how we can approach that. So it really helps set the foundation and also create the case, from, leadership and to our peers, how you can use data and how you can use data to create efficiencies, understand how to talk to people, and move your company forward.
And then since this is a Blackbaud conference, we're going to really highlight our move to Razor's Edge and the philanthropy focus here. So Sam mentioned earlier, many of our systems were on a mainframe. So we had a very, very bare bones donor management system that was created for the institution. It was, hand coded by our programmers a long time ago. I think it was implemented in 1987 that we were still operating off of into 2016. So our move to Razor's Edge in 2017 was the first time we were taking that homegrown data off of a homegrown system and really moving it into an industry leading software that was going to help us propel things forward. So we moved to Razor's Edge 7 in 2017. That set the stage for upgrading, right, and moving into NXT in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. We thought, what else can we do to add stress to our lives but upgrade and do more enhancements? And so that moved in 2020 was really important. And you see we also use a partner product of Postomatic in 2020. That is going to lead me into, if I can get my screen to switch, some of our key learnings that are really influencing the new ERP implementation. So Razor's Edge 7 was implemented. Our gift reporting structure was set up to work with one accounting system that we have here. We then moved and added that partner product, Postomatic, because there's actually two accounting systems at Chautauqua, one in endowment and one on our operating side. And we needed to be able to push philanthropic revenue to both of them. That upgrade to NXT provided that extra dashboarding, the insight designer. It really made that transparent self-service reporting to our fundraising team. That really kicked us into high gear. And being able to talk to our colleagues and showcase our information in a very different way. After we lived with that for a few years, we realized that the way we set up our gift reporting and our structure when we originally implemented was not going to work for our strategic plan and our capital campaign needs. So we ended up, 3 years in, restructuring our campaigns funds, appeals slightly, but redoing everything, which then also meant we had to remap everything to the existing accounting system. But that work, although it felt sort of awful to redo what you had just done a few years prior, it really is setting the stage for that new level of detail that we need in the ERP system. It's influencing our chart of accounts that's being created. It's influencing how we have to map all the information coming from other systems going into the ERP. So that work we went through and the stress of it really is just really important and making it so that we can set that ERP system up correctly and not be in that same position of redoing something a few years later. I'm going to go back to our little map and highlight the circle around ticketing. You see ticketing 3 different years in a row. That's true. We came out of the pandemic with a lot of changing needs about how we were going to bring patrons on the grounds. We moved very fast in picking a ticketing partner. And we lived with a new ticketing partner for a full cycle, a full season, and then discovered that because we were so rushed and because of a thousand other reasons, it wasn't going to be the right ticketing partner for us in the long term. So in 2022, we actually rolled back to our prior ticketing sales on our mainframe so that we could have the time to implement what is our current ticketing partner. And we went live with that in 2023. Having all of these different systems and that different structure really informs some of the problem solving. And I'm going to throw it over to Dariel and Vanessa to talk about the disparate systems.
One of the issues that we had is that we had a lot of systems in here that had a lot of different data structures. Trying to make sure that we have a way to cross-reference all of those, having a way to determine when we have duplicates amongst all of those, and having a way to just talk about which way do we find out what record exists in one system and how does that go to another system, and having a little bit of synchronization. Vanessa, talk about the 360-degree view of the patron and considering the future.
Yeah, of course. So, you've heard us talk about all of our different businesses. We've talking about all of our disparate systems, the work that we've done within NXT and that roadmap as well. But when we look at the future and building out the 360-degree view of the patron, connecting disparate systems is key. And that EDW, the enterprise data warehouse, is also key. So when we talk about the future, I just want to make sure that, we really get across the importance of strategic planning and the visioning work along the way to connect this. That way, data governance is obviously essential. I know that we're running low on time. I have a few more things to say about that, but we will move on to the next slide.
Thanks, Vanessa. I'm going to kick it into high gear and make sure that we can cover these next couple of slides pretty quickly. All of those ticketing challenges, prioritizing philanthropy, prioritizing our earned revenue goals and our philanthropic revenue goals. One of the ways we use ticketing data is we need to know when our patrons and our prospects are going to be on site with us. They buy a ticket, they expect us to know that they're going to be here. And so we need to be able to get to them for personal visits, invite them to the president's cottage, invite them for private meet and greets. This really fuels our major gift pipeline of being able to work back from that ticketing data and cultivate our donors appropriately. All of those changes we talked about, the many different ticketing systems in different years. At first, there was a lot of excitement. Then obviously, of beginnings of fatigue, right? Our patrons started to get tired of having this constant change. We ended up adding a new action type in Razor's Edge because even though we have a wonderful customer service department, their donors started coming to major gift officers and giving us their concerns and their questions around customer service, and it wasn't just gift conversations. The other thing we unearthed in this is that our prospect pipeline is generally excited about capital improvements. They'll help us fund a building. They'll build a new building. They'll help us make improvements in existing buildings. They'll help us with operating. But we haven't found anybody, well, very, very small pipeline of folks who are interested in helping us fund this technology infrastructure with philanthropy. So that was really key for us to understand that our patrons just expect technology to be there. It's a fact of everyday life, right? And they're not as excited as just a building. We have 1 minute left. We're leveraging a lot of Blackbaud partner products, the Power Platform, Omatic, to help us connect these systems. I won't go into them all. I think we're going to miss out on talking about some of the rest of that stuff. And so maybe we should move to the last slide of our complete ecosystem.
So you can see the slides that she quickly ran through covered. I mean, if you take a look at those slides, you see, really the vastness of this project. And we are moving into the purple, which is data infrastructure and our enterprise resource management platform. Finally having an ERP, kind of be a hub for a lot of different type of data as you see across the other organizations. we have laid that foundation. We have implemented our ticketing system. Our enterprise data warehouse model is now completed, and it is, being built at this time. And now we're moving into that data infrastructure, the householding, the connecting, making sure that we can create that prospect to donor pipeline, that, that lead to marketing to visitor pipeline. And, we know that once we get to the end, we just have to continue.
So I think we are at time. We didn't really have time for very much Q&A, so I encourage you, if you have questions, in the PDF that's in the materials, this links to our LinkedIn accounts. Feel free to reach out, connect with us on LinkedIn, shoot us a note, ask questions, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Thank you to the Chautauqua team. This was really informative presentation. I got a lot out of it. I think that the emphasis just on the people and process end of things, right? It's a three-legged stool, right? Technology is just one part of the puzzle. So really exciting to see you talk about your journey and transformation. And I wish this could have been an hour. I'm sorry that we had to cut it a little short. But thank you for contributing to BB Dev Days and being part of the community.
Thank you so much.
Okay.